On Larry King Now, rapper and activist Killer Mike.
If I'm strong, my greater community is stronger, right? The black community, my neighbors are stronger because I take care of my yard, I pay my taxes, that helps my street. Because my community is stronger, the greater community is stronger, and America is stronger. We could work harder, we could progress further, faster. James Baldwin said, I think in 86, 87, like, how long must I wait? My father waited, my uncle waited, his father before him. How long are we waiting? I think we can progress faster. What I'd really like to talk to the president about is what are we going to do for prison reform?
They just did a major bill.
It was okay, but it's not as good as we could.
Plus, I've been a civil rights advocate all my life.
Yes, sir.
What can I do?
You can find a black business to support. And you can also build bridges across cultural divides and befriend someone who doesn't look like you and let them inform you for how to be an ally in your local jurisdiction.
All next on Larry King Now. Welcome to Larry King Now. Today's special guest is Killer Mike. Mike is a Grammy-winning rapper and one half of the Grammy-nominated hip-hop duo Run the Jewels. He is also an outspoken activist who's used his voice to address a wide range of issues facing the black community and society at large. His newest project, which does just that, is a 6-part Netflix docuseries called Trigger Warning. Trigger Warning is getting great feedback. How did this start?
Well, it started with me in the 4th grade wondering things, Children ask questions, and oftentimes adults tell them to be quiet. So if you look at the White Jesus episode, that starts from me literally asking my grandparents, why is Jesus white? If he was able to go to Egypt and East Africa and his lineage comes, that doesn't make sense. The people who are there don't look white. And usually you just tell a curious child to be quiet if you don't have the answers. But my grandmother would tell me stuff like, read. Go investigate. And
did you bring that to your rap music?
Absolutely.
All right.
Absolutely.
So what led to having a project?
I befriended a guy named Daniel Weidenfeld. We're friends. And he and I have been talking about this show for about 10 years, trying to make the type of show that will raise those type of questions and generate these types of conversations. And we got an opportunity from FX to demo it. It was a little too polished when we did it at FX, and we said we'd like to take what we did here around and have it stripped down, and we ended up on Netflix. And here
Is it you talking?
Yeah, I made the pitch. Daniel and I and the guy named Vernon wrote it together. A guy named Vikram directed it. But yeah, it's me. It's my idea.
It's not rapping. It's talking.
It's talking. Okay. I sing and dance pretty good, but I like talking.
Here's what Solange said about the show. Some of Mike's philosophies are rooted in comedy. After all, it's entertainment. But all of his ideas originate from something so rare in today's society, common sense. Yeah. Acknowledging the lack of common sense is the only way I can justify this government shutdown, our president's entire political existence, and the failed American systems we continue to let run our lives. Do you think all systems have failed? Don't you think there has been progress? Despite this president and maybe this,
I tell my trainer our progress when I lost 2 pounds. He says you could have lost 20 by now if you'd worked harder. We could work harder. We could progress further, faster. James Baldwin said, I think in 86, 87, like, how long must I wait? My father waited, my uncle waited, his father before him. How long are we waiting? I think we can progress faster.
What do you make of the current divide in this country?
I think what Chomsky says is right. I think that we're given two polar opposite things to argue about, and we're given a wider range of space to argue, however radically those things, but we are not allowed to pick tertiary or things that are outside of the box as answers or solutions. And because of that, we're losing an opportunity to really progress the human race faster.
Now, I'm told that Trigger Warning addresses issues like affecting black people, business and commerce,
yes,
the black community, education, religion.
Yes.
Are you passionate about all of those?
Yeah, and they affect us all. Like, I want people to understand, I as an individual first must be responsible for myself. And then I'm responsible to the greater community, right? So if I'm strong, my greater community is stronger, right? The black community, my neighbors are stronger because I take care of my yard, I pay my taxes, that helps my street. Because my community is stronger, the greater community is stronger, and America is stronger. This country, my grandfather was born in 1922, about 11 years before you. My grandfather says that at a time when he was 20, 21 years old, if he went to a doctor, it was a black guy. Went to a dentist, it was a black guy. If he went to a grocery store, it was 100th Street Grocery, it was black owned. Everything, he could turn his dollar in his community 7, 8 times before it got out. After integration, when we started to integrate our money with bigger corporate interests, what we did was dissipate our individual power. And because we did that, everything suffered. Our economic stability suffered. Our homes suffered because parents were no longer getting married, because a man's not going to marry if he can't sustain a family. And then we started suffering in terms of things like jobs and school. And it's gotten progressively worse over the last years.
Worse? Isn't economic stability better?
No. Atlanta is a microcosm of America. It's a black city, right? Ran by black people. We have the most Fortune 500 companies of top 3 in the nation. But we're a microcosm because our wealth poverty divide is virtually the same as America. So we've been doing exactly what the bigger country's been doing, even though we're a chocolate city. We can't do that same model. What Dr. King talked about his last 3 years of life was the beloved community, the ending of war, the eradication of poverty, and the upliftment of the poor and working class. We as a society within the black community and the greater community are not doing a good job of that. We all could progress a lot quicker.
So how do you explain a black president for 8 years?
How do I explain a black president for 8 years?
No.
I explain it when you elect a second one. Until then, we just had a black president for 8 years. The community has something to be proud of in Barack Obama. But we don't have a black Jesus hanging on the wall. We don't have black institutions that are talked about and revered like Harvard and Yale. We don't have a dominant economic force like, say, a nation like China, or that Chinese or Vietnamese communities have been able to build here. So having a black president was a beautiful thing. It's definitely a ceiling I never thought I'd see broken in my lifetime. But if that's all we have, then that's still not enough.
But if I had told that 4-year-old boy who asked about Jesus that there will be a black president when he's still a young man, he wouldn't have believed it.
Yeah, but it was more conceivable to that 4-year-old boy because he had seen a black mayor. I've never known my city not to have a black mayor. I've seen blacks in leadership my entire life. Andrew Young, Maynard Jackson, Shirley, Bill. I've seen black people be in leadership, so I've seen good black politicians, bad ones. My black president was a great symbol. As a president, he was a decent president. But what I would like to see is actual power and progress for my whole community. And I think that the way we do that is return to keeping our dollar in our community, is return to historically black colleges and universities, is return to living in black enclaves where other people have to visit your enclaves and start to spend money there.
That's Malcolm X.
Absolutely.
All right.
And more so, it's Elijah Muhammad and Marcus Garvey.
In the final episode of your series, you want to create your own country.
Yeah.
Like where and how would you?
Well, Jordan Peterson talks about before young people are telling people to radically change the world and change the government, to first clean your room, right? So I decided to try to organize my house and room and organize actually a country. It's a very difficult endeavor to organize a country, to say the least. And what I saw in organizing my own country is that the people who are outside of New Africa, who are activists and fighting against police and police brutality here, once you gave them the opportunity to police and be the policers and enforcers, they acted similar to the people who they rally against here. What I found is that the people who are most different, or who we look at as weird or somehow shunned here, that when given an opportunity to be in society, those people who choose not to stay in step and to walk their own path are more patriots than they are antagonists, and they're to be celebrated. So it even caused me to start to look at things differently, to start to say, hey, maybe that guy standing on a corner yelling that we're wrong and we're going the wrong way, maybe I should listen to him more and listen less to the people who are talking to me through TV with agenda.
So your own country would be a country, not a state, in this country.
Yeah, it'd be a country in this country, ideally, but I don't think I'd be allowed to.
Years ago, I knew Donald Trump. I knew him very well.
Okay.
You put down David Dukes. He was a supporter of Hillary Clinton. I would call him a moderate Republican.
Yeah.
What happened?
What happened to Donald Trump?
Would you like to meet with him?
Yeah, I'd meet with any U.S. president.
What would you say to him?
I'd say, what are you doing with my money? I'd say that there are better things to do than a wall. I'd asked also for Dr. Ben Carson to me in that meeting because I'd like to know what's going on with HUD. And
never hear about him.
Yeah, how did I hear about Carson?
No, I never hear about him.
Yeah, you never hear about him, and I'd like to hear about him. I'd like to hear some real progress being made on HUD. What I'd really like to talk to the president about is we have since 1937, around marijuana laws in particular, and around drug laws, we have made it virtually legal to be an addict in this country. We've fought a drug war that slanted to the side of racism. I'd ask him that what are we going to do to start to correct that? What are we going to do for prison reform? What are we going to do to retroactively allow people who've served 20 and 30-year sentences for minor drug offenses from when they were 19, 21, 22 years old? What are we going to do to reacclimate these people back into society? And how are we going to change our prison system to be more one of that rehabilitates people?
They just did a major bill.
Yeah, it was okay, but it's not as good as we could. We could do much better.
When we return, we'll talk politics of the day with Killer Mike. And later, we'll even get an update on his music career. He still's got that. The Netflix series is Trigger Warning. Stay with us. We're back with Killer Mike. The series is Trigger Warning on Netflix. We just celebrated Martin Luther King Day. I knew him. What does his legacy mean to you?
I'm a part of his legacy. I was mentored by Reverend James Orange, who was a direct organizer with Dr. King. Helped organize the Selma March, was from Alabama, and was heel and toe with Dr. King the whole way.
But he'd be against your separate country.
Would he?
He would.
He wouldn't even, Reverend Orange wouldn't even call me killer. He called us leader, me and the other young men he knew. I don't think he would be against, you know what? He probably would, for the same reasons Frederick Douglass was against Africans leaving and going back to Africa. You know, we've made our way in America. And you know, I don't want to pull out of this country. I don't want to leave. I like America. I like being an American. I just wish to exercise my full rights while I'm here. So I think black people should assert more of their rights. They should be more in the mainstream. They just should make sure they take care of themselves individually and as a community and don't lose themselves doing that.
The new book out on Frederick Douglass, very good biography.
I got to grab it. I went to Frederick Douglass High School.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, in Atlanta, Georgia, under Dr. Samuel Hill.
Is there a current figure that you would say ranks with King?
Is there a current figure that ranks with King? That's a big ranking. I'll tell you, there are figures out there who inspired me as he did. One of them is former Senator of Ohio, Nina Turner, who's the leader of our revolution. She reminds me of Shirley Chisholm, who reminded me of Dr. King in spirit. Jane Elliott is still alive and profoundly Dr. King-like, right? I think that Dr. King and his beloved community is something worth all of us aspiring toward. But who's the next Dr. King? I don't know, you know. But I know that there are people like Bernie Sanders who ran on an agenda that was much like King's beloved community. I felt like we missed an opportunity to elect a president that was in line with the philosophy of Dr. King. And I would like to see more of that happen. I think of Mina Matthews, the organizer out of Chicago, who's the daughter of Jeff Fort, also was one of those people. So I'm enthused about the next wave of people that are coming up.
Bernie was not a great civil rights leader in the Senate, though.
Which politician has been? Because I can name you 10 black politicians that have not been either. You know, I think Huey Newton said that leaders don't lead. You know, the influencers are not deciding. The people are deciding. In this country, James Baldwin talked about it. As Americans, we're going to have to get to our bathrooms, look in the mirror, and say, what am I doing to drop my prejudices and bigotry? What am I doing, or what am I going to not be willing to trade or spin off in terms of greater comfort for me? And we're going to have to decide to just do it as a people. So I'm not in the business of necessarily tearing down individuals when we as a people aren't making the right moves. We knew that drug laws were unfair when we passed the 1994 crime bill. We quietly let that happen, and 20-something years later, we have a prison epidemic that has basically targeted one group of people and robbed children of an opportunity to grow up with fathers and women to grow up with husbands. You know, Bernie spoke against that, even inside in the bill, because they added something in there about women in crime, but he spoke against it at first. To me, to have the right moral aptitude at that time matters more than a voting record, because politics is about the allocation of resources amongst groups of people, and sometimes you make concessions.
Did you admire Bill Clinton?
No.
My conversation with Killer Mike, including a round of If You Only Knew, continues after the break. We'll be right back on Larry King Now. We're back with Killer Mike. His show is on Netflix. It's Trigger Warning, and I am surprised to see on the table a 4-pack of cola called Kripa-Cola.
Kripa-Cola.
What is this?
At some point, I went online on Facebook trying to see what my auntie was doing. And I saw an ad pop up for a Hells Angels t-shirt. And we know Hells Angels to be a motorcycle club. Some people allege a criminal gang and have created criminal activities, done criminal activities. But we know that somehow they legitimize themselves and they can now sell merchandise, which make it less likely for them to just be a violent gang because they have the ability to create commerce in the free market. I always wondered why Crips and Bloods, Gangster Disciples and Vice Lords had not done the same thing. They spent the last 50 years building a brand where we are in love with outlaws in this country. We love Al Capone. We love Sonny Bulger. We love Whitey Ford. We love our gangsters in this country. We name restaurants after them. Godfather Pizza, 2 Chainz on the restaurant is called, named after one of the drug lords. So I said, let's take what kills more people than guns in this country, sugar, soda. We never get mad at soda companies. We never threaten to close them. Let's take that. Let's make a product for you guys, and let's put it in the marketplace. And then, in the spirit of Coke and Pepsi, let's create a competition within that. So not only do we have Cripa-Cola, we also have B-Pop, which are the Crips rivals to Bloods. And I think that rivalry, because really these kids are street fraternities.
That has sugar or no sugar?
This has sugar. What it does not have is high fructose or chemicals. It's just cane sugar, water, and food coloring.
Where is it made?
It's made in the United States. These kids made the recipe themselves. They're now getting it manufactured. These are some of the prototypes, and we're going to be rolling them out, sooner or later.
When are you rolling it out?
Well, some of the prototypes have been sold because people couldn't wait, but in the next few weeks, you'll see an increase of them.
Cripa-Cola.
Cripa-Cola and B-Pop.
Can I have that?
Absolutely, this is yours.
I will put it in the refrigerator and try it.
That's yours.
It's got a cola taste. Right?
No, it's cola. Absolutely. It's like RC, like Coke, like Pepsi. It's cola.
Okay, Cripa-Cola. Look for it. I've been a civil rights advocate all my life.
Yes, sir.
What can I do, in your opinion,
I
consider myself a liberal civil rights advocate?
I got such the answer for you.
What?
White people get kicked around and beat up a lot, right? When blacks say white people, a lot of times what they're saying is corporations or government. But it has to hurt on the other side of that camera to constantly hear white people. White people have done a great job at being allies and advocates in this country, and we can't deny that. People like you, people like Bernie Sanders, people like Eugene Debs, people like the great John Smith, who holds high regard in my household. What you can do every Friday is not revolt, not grab your guns and go turn over government. You can find a black business to support. You can support that business, whether that business is a club, whether that business is a restaurant, whether it's a hotel or car dealership. You can support that business. And you can also build bridges across cultural divides and befriend someone who doesn't look like you and let them inform you for how to be an ally in your local jurisdiction.
Right before Martin Luther King Day, there was that terrible incident at the Lincoln Memorial where those Catholic students were Make America Great Again, and they had the other Native American. What did you make of all that?
It seems that the argument is being framed that a young kid was intimidating a Native man. And it's being framed, of course, white Anglo-Saxon Protestant child, indigenous American. There's also a third child right next to him. That was a black boy who was also teasing and taunting. And I think in this country, we have not done a good job of teaching our young people to respect elders. I think that the saying that every time an old person dies, a library burns to the ground needs to be something that's taught to children from 3 and 4 years old. I think that young man thought he was being respectful, but the most respectful thing he could have done was take the hat off and simply bow to the man or walk away quietly. I think that older people have been shunned by us, middle-aged people or people in the middle 20, 30, 40, so therefore young people treat older people like that. I think that there's time to turn that young man's tide, and I think that we as a country should be trying to do that.
Do you regard that statement, Make America Great Again, as racist?
It doesn't particularly bother me, but I understand why it bothers people, because America has not been great for us as an African American, you know.
We play a little game of If You Only Knew. We just throw questions at you. Who's someone from history you'd like to take to lunch?
Marcus Garvey.
Best piece of advice you ever got?
Stay a child as long as you can, from my grandmother.
Worst piece of advice you ever got?
Go ahead and have the baby.
Something or someone who inspires you.
Something or someone who inspires me? This week, Eugene Debs.
Something you'd like to change about the world?
Maybe the elimination of money.
The elimination of money.
Yeah. Jacques Fresco talks about in the future.
I knew Jacques very well.
Yeah. Jacques talked about really we're living too primal. in terms of living in a money system. We should be figuring out a system that does not involve money at this point.
Biggest risk you ever took?
Dropping out of college to pursue music. I dropped out of one of the finest universities in the land, Morehouse, to pursue music. I got a record deal the same year I would have graduated. Dumbest decision I ever made.
When are we going to hear more from Run the Jewels?
Run the Jewels 4 will be out this year. LP and I will be recording in the next few weeks. We look forward to making the world go crazy again.
So you're not forgetting your music roots?
Nah, sing and dance. My wife always reminds, when I get up in the morning, my wife plays gospel music and reminds me my job is to sing and dance for people. She gave me a great piece of advice this year. She said, I need a husband way more than the world needs another martyr.
You a good dancer?
Very good.
Light on your feet?
Light on my feet. I do spins and all that.
What's the Ralph Lauren bear shirt?
Shouts out to Ralph Lauren. He brought back the polo bear. Yeah, another good Jewish kid from Brooklyn, man, has done good in the world.
What's the biggest risk you ever took?
Biggest risk I ever took? Asking my wife to marry me.
Because you thought she'd say no?
Well, she told me no. The first time I asked her was in 2 weeks of knowing her. She told me no. We spent the next 3 years dating and her breaking my heart.
What's the last film or TV show you watched?
Trigger Warning with Killer Mike.
Killer Mike in 10 years.
Killer Mike in 10 years? I'll be a multimillionaire and either running for school board or living in Jamaica.
A multimillionaire with no cash?
Well, that's if I don't think we're going to get rid of cash. I'm going to live to the best within this system. But if we get rid of cash, I'd gladly comply.
You're in favor of the Second Amendment and gun rights, right?
Very much in favor of Second Amendment.
Why?
Why wouldn't I be? I'm only been free
Because
55
people are
years.
shooting up schools.
No, people aren't shooting up schools on a daily basis.
Not a daily basis, it's all monthly basis.
Yeah, just bad things happen. You know, people don't use their brakes or brakes go out, but we don't ban cars. I am only been free 55 years. My father is 63 years old. My father was born in apartheid. We have agents of the state now that are currently murdering people look like me, and they aren't going to jail. I would not advise any ethnic group of people, only 55 years into freedom, to ever disarm themselves. I just wouldn't. So it's not something I'm ever going to bend.
Whites and blacks. Everybody have a gun.
Yeah, absolutely. 5. There should be 5 guns per household. You should have a shotgun. You should have a semi-automatic
How about
rifle.
guns in schools? Teachers should have guns?
No, I don't think guns should be in school. But if your teacher has it in the car and it's a legal gun, then I'm not gonna search that teacher's car to find it.
Why do you want all the guns in the house?
Why do I want guns? I was about to say, you should have a pistol that's a revolver because it's easy to shoot. You should have a semi-automatic because it shoots a lot and is easy to shoot. You should have a shotgun because if anybody dares to kick in your door, it's just as easy as barricading yourself in your room and shooting out. You should have a long rifle in case you have to eat or kill a deer. That way you got meat through the winter. And you should have an AR-15 in case the government ever tries to take your freedom.
Why?
Why not? You're Jewish. You should really be the last person to ask me that. The government is untrustable. Government is horrible at its
I don't
work.
want to hold a gun.
Yeah, you should. You should come to the range with me. If you come to Atlanta, I'll take you to Stutters.
I'm not gun happy.
I'm not gun happy. I'm smart.
You think they're going to pass legislation in the House, though, tightening gun control?
I hope not. That's the one thing I have faith in people who wear Make America Great hats again. I think that they're going to keep the Second Amendment intact. What I would like to see talked about, though, Larry, is the 13th Amendment. The 13th Amendment gives clear pathway to slavery in this country. And I think that we can't, there are 300 million people in this country. We know at least there are 200 million guns. Since Massachusetts passed their bump stock laws, nobody's turned their bump stocks back in, right? So people aren't going to turn their guns back in. We are dealing with that. What we can deal with and what we can change is a piece of legislation or to amend the 13th Amendment that says slavery is illegal except for. We have made slavery legal in this country, and since the time of chain gangs, which my grandfather served in, we have used prison labor as slavery. I think our time is better served radically changing the culture of slavery in this country than it is radically changing.
Where do you see slavery?
Slavery is, the 13th Amendment allows for legalized slavery. It says that slavery is illegal except for prison. It is easier for me as a black man to go to prison.
It doesn't say that, except for prison.
No, it does. Yes, it does. Let's pull it up and see. You want to Google?
It says except for prison.
Except for prison. Slavery is illegal except for prison.
Well, that would include whites in prison.
Yeah, but the problem is because of Jim Crow laws, because of unfair drug sentencing, and because of the perception that somehow black men are hyper-violent, we get sentenced more. We get sentenced longer, and we get sentenced worse.
Are you rooting for someone in 2020?
I'm rooting for Bernie Sanders to come out of retirement.
He hasn't said he won't run.
Yeah, but he hasn't said he will, so I hope he does.
In our final moments, Killer Mike will answer your questions sent in over social media. That's next. We'll be right back. We have some social media questions for you. The series is Trigger Warning on Netflix.
Yeah.
Morgan Shave on the Larry King Now blog. How did you come up with the name Killer Mike?
I didn't name myself. My nickname was Skunk around the neighborhood.
Skunk?
Yeah, my grandmother called me a low-down skunk one time because I slammed the door in my sister's face.
So who named you Killer Mike?
Killer Mike was given to me by a DJ named Double D. I was battle rapping a group of kids, and I just went through him like a hot knife through butter, and he stood on top of a table or something in the room and said, "You guys shut up, this kid's a killer." And after that, everybody just called me Killer.
Arthur Dorrance on the Larry King Now blog. What do you make of the recent prison reform laws passed by the Trump administration?
I'm happy the administration passed some prison reform laws. I wish they were doing more. I'm also happy that upon his exit, Obama chose to do something around prison reform and bring some light to that. I think this country is headed in that direction, and I think we can get there faster if the public makes big noise about it.
Was Obama a disappointment to you?
Was Obama a disappointment? No, he was not a disappointment. He was an average United States president, and that's not a disappointment. That's what we get. And that's not saying anything bad about him. That's just saying,
Arthur Dorrance asks, what do the Dems need to do in order to win back the White House? Is there a message, a singular message that will resonate with voters?
I think the Democrats need to get behind a true progressive. We need Dr. King right now. We don't need a neoliberal as a Democrat. We need a truly radical Democrat that is willing to push the fabric of American society.
Don't you think Joe Biden's a good man?
No, I didn't say he wasn't a good man. I said we need a radical. Yeah, the world is filled with good men, but we need radicals, right?
Okay. JM on the Larry King Now blog. You say in Trigger Warning that racism is learned. How do you think we should go about breaking the cycle of racism in the country?
One thing we could do is to start to teach world and American history from a better perspective. If white children who are in elementary school first learned about the American Revolution, and they learned that the first person to die in the American Revolution was Crispus Attucks, a black man, that creates a radical sense of patriotism that's not the usual. When Jeff Sessions says that white Anglo-Saxon Protestants have law enforcement as a part of history, as a part of white Anglo-Saxon Protestant history, it denies the 8 black police officers who were the first black cops in Atlanta, who were the example for the first black police chief, Elgin Bell, in Atlanta. So for me, if we were all inclusive about what all races and creeds and colors have brought to this country, it would grow us up with a greater sense of confidence in people who didn't look like each other, and we'd build bridges instead of building walls.
Kate Brannigan on the Larry King Now blog. If you were president, what would be the first policy decision you'd make?
I'd take marijuana off the controlled substance. I take that off. Like, it shouldn't be next to marijuana, cocaine. I would also allow, from the federal civil rights guidelines, I'd allow, if say Georgia's 35% African American, I would require that 35% of marijuana, whether it be distribution, growth, or sales, have to be African Americans. I'd also make it retroactively that all federal prisoners for marijuana nonviolent offenses, drug offenses, would be freed and transition back into regular society and able to enjoy their full rights.
Keep alcohol legal?
I would keep alcohol legal because it's your choice if you choose to put that in your body.
Ashley Butner on the Larry King Now blog. How has being a father changed your perspective on life and your work?
I don't curse as much in my raps because I have girls as I used to. And I'm very, my children challenge me. I have children that personality-wise are just like me. So I'm constantly challenged on a day-to-day basis with little people who look like me.
Great meeting you, man.
Thank you so much, Larry.
Stay well, Killer.
I appreciate you.
Big thanks to my guest, Killer Mike. Be sure to tune in to Trigger Warning, now streaming on Netflix. And as always, you can find me on Twitter at King's Things. See you next time.